Hello Internet, my name is Ryan Ingram and today we are going to talk about paying off your mortgage. Now this is one of the most common questions I get and it generally comes in two forms. First, people ask me if it's a good idea if they should go ahead and pay off their mortgage, or when people learn how many properties my brother and I have and also learn that we still have mortgages on our homes, they often ask, why wouldn't you just pay off a few properties, or sell a few properties and pay off your mortgage? And today I'm going to use my real mortgage. I'm going to show you my balance, my monthly payment, how much goes where and why, and we're going to really just dive in deep to the math problem behind this question. So the house that I currently live in, my wife and I just bought it in January. Previously, we were living in like a 700 square foot house. We have 3 kids under 3. We're about to have a 4th, and that house just got too small. So we finally felt comfortable enough to buy a larger home. So in January, we bought a property for $190,000. The current balance on our mortgage is $177,717.71. For better or worse, I have the monthly payment absolutely memorized. So each month I pay $1,269.88. But as you're familiar, even if I were to pay off my house, I wouldn't lose this monthly payment. This monthly payment doesn't only correspond to the original balance. So this payment is broken up a lot of things, and there are a few things escrowed. If you're not familiar with what escrow means, then the bank has to have some sort of collateral or guarantee to lend this much money. So what they do is, they take your house for collateral, but there are things that could happen that could take that collateral from them. The main two are some sort of like natural disasters, a hurricane, fire, tornado, something like that. And the second, and probably the most probable, is the government. So if you do not pay your taxes, the government can come in and take your home. Now it's the local government, not the federal government, but still, nonetheless, the bank has 2 main risks that they have to mitigate for very regularly to ensure that their collateral stays safe, because if you stop paying them, they're going to come take your home. If you haven't seen it yet, I have a phenomenal video about foreclosures that you should check out, where we go over all of the ways to make a lot of money by buying rental properties from foreclosures. However, in order to mitigate their risk, what the bank does is they escrow your insurance payment and your taxes. That way, they are paying the taxes on your behalf, and then you reimburse them for that inside of your monthly payment. And the other parts of this monthly payment is the interest and the principal. So let's go over all of those in detail so that we could really pinpoint exactly what we're talking about. So inside of my monthly payment, we have an escrowed amount of $413.72, and this is comprised of 3 things. The first is the taxes that I have to pay on an annual basis. For this property, the taxes are right about $3,000 per year. So about $250 of this is for my taxes. The second is insurance. My insurance is in the ballpark of about $850 per year. And the third thing is PMI, or private mortgage insurance. Now the private mortgage insurance, or the PMI, that does fall off if you have at least 25% equity in the property. But on this one, I put the minimum amount down. I think I put 5% down, and I am nowhere close to getting that PMI removed. And for my personal loan, that PMI payment every month is $56.86. Now that is included in the escrow. And if I were to pay this balance down more than 25% of the purchase price, then I would save $56.86 per month. But I'm honestly not concerned about that, and I'm really looking forward to explaining why. Now, the principal and interest payments, those fluctuate on a monthly basis based on the amortization schedule that you were provided when you closed on your home, or if you haven't purchased a home yet, you will be provided an amortization schedule at the time of closing. However, there are also amortization calculators that you can go on the internet, look up, and you can make your own amortization schedule. And what this does is it shows you each month how much principal and how much interest you are paying. Now, these amortization schedules do not include the other things that come out of escrow, because you're going to be paying these escrow things regardless of whether or not you have the loan. So for this particular month, I can tell you that my principal payment is $265.25. And the interest that I'm paying is $590.91. And if you add these three payments together, then you're going to get $1,269.88. But let me go ahead and fact check myself using my handy dandy calculator. Oh, silly blue. To get $1,269.88. This is my monthly payment. So now let's think through this, right? The balance is $177,717.71. This is at an interest rate of 3.99% over 30 years. So if I pay off this entire balance, I'm not going to wipe away this entire monthly payment. I'm still going to have to pay the taxes, and I'm still going to have to pay the insurance. So we're going to go ahead and erase this escrow, because even though PMI is included and it will fall off, ultimately we're still going to make these monthly payments. So the principal payment of $265.25, that is money that is going against the loan value. So this is the part that a lot of investors or people that love real estate refer to as like the forced savings plan, because every month, whether I want to or not, I'm saving $265.25. Now, like I said, that number fluctuates, but for this month, we're just going to use these numbers for this time period. And we're going to say that it's $265.25 for this illustration every month. However, that's money that we are keeping. It's not going to anyone else. So if we were to pay off the $177,717.71 in full, then this principal would be included in that, because we would be saving that amount of money, because you would have all of your house's equity. So the only thing that we really need to look at when we are determining whether or not we need to pay off our mortgage, or if it's smart or wise or the most prudent thing to do or the most conservative thing to do, anything like that, then we only need to look at the monthly interest payment, because we are going to benefit or continue to pay all of the other parts that make up your mortgage payment, except for the interest. So let me give myself some more headroom so that I can get back in front of the camera appropriately, but nonetheless, $590.91 is the main number that we're going to use for the remainder of this video. So with the $590.91, all we are really looking to do is attempt to figure out, is it prudent for me to spend $177,717.71 just to save $590.91 per month? So let's look at the math behind that. So what you can immediately boil this math problem down to is, can I lend, can I invest, or can I somehow get a return on money that is greater than 3.99%? Because that is what I'm paying for the mortgage, and that is the interest that is 3.99% on $177,717.71. So if I had that $177,717.71 and I could invest it out at 10%, then now you're making a 6.01% spread on your money. So it would be more beneficial to invest the money elsewhere at a 10% rate of return, rather than keeping it for some sort of peace of mind over $590.91. Now, another thing that I would like to quickly point out is the fact that we are living in a time of extraordinarily cheap mortgage rates. So I know that historically, interest rates are anywhere between 0% and as high as 18%. So if this were back in the 70s, when interest rates on home loans were still 13, 14, 15, 18%, then most certainly that would change my tune, because it would be very difficult to lend money out at 18%. From a personal perspective. Now, clearly the banks were doing it, so somebody has the ability to lend money out and get higher than that return. But for like the average individual who is looking to, work their full-time job and also invest money, I think 18%, that puts the stakes really high, and that puts you in this very aggressive, competitive, and more risky environment. So I would not be giving the same advice if our mortgage rates jumped up to let's say higher than 12%, because I think it would no longer be worth it to trust somebody else to give you a 12% return if you can just simply pay down your mortgage and give yourself a 12% return on your own money. However, since we're in a time right now where interest rates are still falling, my brother is giving people loans at 2.25% at the moment. And I was really proud of mine at 3.99 back in January whenever we first got this. So rates are low. And as a general rule of thumb, if you can borrow money this cheap over this long of a time period, then you absolutely should. I don't think there's anything wrong with borrowing money at that interest rate if you can and if you have the ability to use that money to make, 8 to 12% return year over year. So right here I wrote the mortgage. So if we carried out this mortgage for the complete term, then by the end of the life of the loan, then we would have paid $124,509.80 in interest alone. $124,510. I rounded up just to make things easier, and also I ran out of room. So now let's look at the other options that are available to us. Now I am not as suave as I once was in the stock market because I decided to cash out all of my retirements, all of the stocks that I held, and go all in real estate investing. So what I do know about stocks is when I was really big into them, I loved dividend stocks. So I was only investing in companies like Coca-Cola and some REITs and companies that by and large gave larger dividends than usual. BP, Verizon, those were a few other ones where I thought they had very attractive dividends. And if you're not familiar with dividends, then each year on generally a quarterly basis, the stock would pay out a dividend. So I just looked up Ladder, LADR, that is their ticker symbol, and they are a real estate company. So they have tons of real estate, and ultimately they are currently paying a 10.61% dividend. So each year you would get paid out 10.61%, and this would be paid out quarterly. So in this example, if you were to reinvest that 10.61% back into the company, we can solve for this option pretty quickly. So now we could do a math problem that I went over in the wealth formula video, where we can figure out if we invested $177,717.71 into LADR or ladder rather than paying off our mortgage, then now we can come up with a really pretty picture of option B. So let's go ahead and call the mortgage option A. And now B would be. Now companies that provide dividend stocks, they do have the ability to change their dividends, increase it, decrease it, or even pause it. So I know a lot of companies paused their dividends or disbursements whenever the pandemic occurred. So this is a little bit more risky, but hey, people like Elon Musk say the amount of wealth that you will accumulate is directly proportionate to the amount of risk that you're willing to take on. So I am not endorsing Ladder. I'm not saying anything good about them or bad about them. All I did was remembered them from the days of old when I invested in the stock market, looked up their dividend so that I could figure out this math problem. So now let's take the formula, the future value of a dollar formula, and let's go ahead and figure this out. So I've got my calculator up, and if you remember in the video, then it is 1 is the placeholder, and then we're going to put in 10.61%. We are going to do that over 30 years. So for every $1 that we invest now, if we invest it at 10.61% for 30 years, every present dollar is going to be worth 10.59 future dollars. So now we times that by the amount that we have to invest, which is the balance of the mortgage. So that's 20 times 177,717.71. There's not a better day that I could have done this video, just because of the sheer sevens and ones alone. Wow. So if we were to invest that at 10.61% rather than paying off our mortgage, well, now we have $3.6 million. So that's a big difference, right? Again, it's the stock market, so it's not guaranteed, but nonetheless, I just wanted to use this to show how you could better benefit your family, your generational wealth, and all of that by not paying off your mortgage and instead putting that money out into the world to work on your behalf. Now I get it. So much of this is a personal preference. If your mortgage keeps you up at night, if you just really want the security because you think that owning your property outright is going to prevent people from seizing it, then by all means pay off your mortgage, because that will give you a better overall quality of life. But if you don't have that fear, then I would say you are generally better off investing your money at the current low mortgage rates that we're at. But nonetheless, let's look at a third example where instead of paying off your mortgage, instead of paying into the stock market, you go out and you buy rental properties. Okay, so here in the Midwest, you can see in all of my Deals Explained videos that I can get some pretty distressed properties for very cheaply. And I get that this isn't the average price in the majority of the world or in the majority of the states. But nonetheless, here in the Midwest, these are the deals that I'm getting. However, for the sake of this video, let's go ahead and bump it all the way up, because here on the MLS, you can just log on and anybody can buy a house around here for 60, 70 grand and, you know, have a phenomenal rental property, right? So let's use 70 grand as just the absolute top. So let me pull out this calculator again and get to recording. Let's also be pretty conservative and let's just go off the 1% rule. If you're not familiar with the 1% rule, please check out this video where I go over the 1 and 2% rule and why you should know them for nothing else other than just the ease of doing really quick mental math. So let's say that these properties only hit the 1% rule. So if we're buying them for $70,000, they're rented out for $700 per month. Now, if you were to do traditional mortgages on all of these, then you would need to put 25% down on these rental properties. If you work with some like local credit unions, you could potentially only put 15% down, but then you would have that PMI, that private mortgage insurance, like we talked about in the beginning of the video. So if you were to put 25% down on $70,000, then that would be $17,500. And let's just tack on another $3,000 for closing costs. So let's go ahead and say that for each property, you need to put down $20,500. So let me write that down so I don't forget it. So $177,717.71 divided by 20,500 is 8. So if you were not to pay off your mortgage, you could in turn turn around and put down payments on 8 properties, which also falls inside of the Fannie Freddie loans. So you can get 8 loans just like this at 3.99% or better at this time, and you could buy 8 rental properties. So now let's do the math on the rentals. Now this is going to be quick and dirty math just to prove a point. This is not a real example. I think you could do better, and I also think you could do worse. So it doesn't really make sense for me to dive into any of the actual examples or pull out real life scenarios. You could find those in this Deals Explained playlist. But let's go ahead and say that you have the ability to buy 8 rental properties and also keep a little bit of a reserve because you have the 0.66 that you are not utilizing. $70,000, $700 per month, 700 times 8. So now you are at $5,600 per month in cash flow. So since the loan on these $70,000 properties was $20,500, that was the down payment. So we're going to do 70,000 times 0.75. So that's going to be how much the loan value is. And then we're going to do that times 8. So now you have taken out $420,000 worth of leverage or debt in order to buy these 8 rental properties. So in this example, I just mentioned that I am at 3.99%. And yes, you are going to be able to get 8 Fannie Freddie loans, which means you're going to be able to get 30-year low interest loans. But for the sake of just being conservative, let's say that you borrow $420,000 at 5% over 30 years. So let's hop on over to the loan calculator and say it's $420,000 over 30 years at 5%. So your monthly payment is going to be $2,254. Now again, I am just pulling numbers out. So let's say the average insurance policy on each property is $800 times 8, $6,400 divided by 12. Then you're going to be paying $533 per month for your insurance. And as far as taxes go, here locally, $70,000 home is probably going to be right at about $100 per month. So you're going to be paying about $800 per month, $100 per month per property for taxes. So in this very loose, very rough around the edges example, then 2254 plus 65 plus your insurance plus your taxes. So you have so far $3,587.98 in expenses. And these are expenses that you have to pay, not like your capital expenditures, your repairs and maintenance, or your vacancy. I have a video on how to calculate numbers on a rental property that you should check out to really dive in deep to these numbers and just figure out a little bit more of what I'm doing. But nonetheless, now let's do the income of $5,600 minus the $3,587.98, and we have $2,012. Now this is your loose monthly cash flow, not doing, again, capital expenditures, repairs, maintenance, or your vacancy. Now in this example, it's a little bit hard to go apples to apples of the other two examples because this one has appreciation, principal paydown, and also currently a bunch of tax benefits for investing in real estate. However, from this example, we can see that by purchasing rental properties, it generates an amount of cash flow on a monthly basis that's a lot larger than $590.91 of interest that we are attempting to avoid by paying off your mortgage. So option C is ultimately the poison that I picked, is instead of paying off properties, I go out, I get more debt, I purchase more rental properties, which increases the cash flow. And it also is a little bit more secure in my book because I can go out, I can touch these properties, I can physically work on these properties if something is wrong. There's a lot more variables that I have direct control of rather than if I just put my money into the stock market or pay down my mortgage, which only benefits me a total of $590 per month because that's the only amount of interest that I'm saving. Whereas now with 8 rental properties, I'm generating $2,012 per month of cash flow. Again, you could do better, you can do worse. I just kind of pulled numbers out of the air that I think are realistic in order to make that example. So ultimately what I want you to see from these options is probably, by and large, if you dissect your mortgage payment and if you figure out how much interest you are paying per month, then you realize that it's a very small portion of your actual monthly mortgage payment, because a lot of those things inside your mortgage payment, you're still going to have to pay them whether or not you have a loan on the property or not. And in the days of this incredibly low interest rate that you can have on rental properties, on your personal residence, it makes the most sense from this perspective in understanding what I just explained to borrow as much money as you can in order to invest it in things that can also produce enough money. Now, sure, things could go horribly wrong. To Dave Ramsey's point, you can go bankrupt, you can lose everything if there are a few variables that go wrong. So this is something that I think you should look into if you have 30, 40, 50 years ahead of you in order to do this. If you are attempting to retire and you want to lower your monthly expenses, by all means, it makes perfect sense to lower your monthly payments. But at the same time, if we're talking about generational wealth, building a legacy, building an empire, stacking cash flow on a monthly basis in order to more than cover your monthly expenses, it makes most sense to get help in order to do things. And when I say get help, I'm talking about using leverage and using other people's money. Now, of course, you have to do it in a respectful manner, in a reasonable manner, in a realistic manner, and not go out and borrow money and put it in bad investments. That would be a really bad idea. But with the right understanding, with the right research, with the right mentors around you, it is hands down the better decision to invest rather than pay off your mortgage. And if you still choose to pay off your mortgage, just understand that in this example, you would be throwing $180,000 in order to save $590 per month. So that seems very excessive. Which in this example, if you still want to pay off your mortgage, I just want you to understand that you are, in this example, using the numbers for my personal mortgage, I would be throwing 180 grand at a $590 monthly problem. So I just think that that's a very ineffective and irresponsible use of funds. But that's my opinion. Do your own research, check out some other YouTubers, check out some other financial people and figure out what they're saying, and then ultimately come to a conclusion that works for you. Because you're not me, I'm not you, I don't know what's best for you, I only know what's best for me and my family, and ultimately I just wanted to explain this because this is a question that I get a lot, which I really think it deserves an answer, because the conservative conventional wisdom is pay off your mortgage as quickly as possible. In the 70s, in times where interest rates were over 10% on these homes, again, it makes perfect sense. But right now, in the age of extraordinarily low interest rates, I don't think that's the answer. So thank you so much for watching. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, please don't did I say that right? Concerns? Yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Throw a comment in the below where I am striving to answer all of the questions. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Can't wait to talk to you guys soon. Thanks.